I went from working at Walmart to being an entrepreneur. And making that big leap took a lot of courage and it took a lot of concentration and especially willpower and drive. Manifestation can change your life. And I just want to tell you all my story about what I had to do to get to the other side of the fence. So, before all this entrepreneurial stuff, I worked many shit jobs. I worked as a cook before. I was actually worked in the restaurant industry on and off most of my life. My first job was actually at a restaurant called Whataburger. So I started off as a fry cook. So one of the lowest jobs that you can get. I was just 16 though, so it was fine. I'm happy that I worked there. Anyways, throughout my life, I kind of had a problem with like the direction I was going in. I never really knew what I wanted to do. Obviously, I knew I wanted to make money and be successful. And before I knew about all this stuff, I thought about going to college. I tried that. I tried the military. Both those things didn't work out. So I tried many different things. I worked in construction, shitty construction jobs, shitty fast food jobs, all sorts of shitty jobs. And I remember that I have a family member that has a business, right? And it's actually a successful business. And that was like my first exposure to like seeing that some that you could actually run your own business, work for yourself. So thank goodness I had that influence. And I always hated working for other people. I hated that feeling of someone having power over me, having power over my paycheck. I hated having to deal with customers and be polite, which I mean, I'm still polite with my customers and my business, of course, but I just hated, being commanded and told what to do. I never liked it. So eventually later on in my life, I realized I wanted to run my own business. And I tried a couple things that actually failed. So my first foray into business was actually being a mobile mechanic. I had learned in the military how to be a mechanic. That was my job. So when I got out of the military, I started working on vehicles. And the first thing I did was actually I started posting on Craigslist. I would post an ad, picture of me working on a vehicle, and to my surprise, I actually got calls. This was my first form of advertising, was posting on Craigslist. So that actually got me calls, and that was a terrible job. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I was working for myself, but people were just such cheap asses. People would call me, and it would be some crazy fucked up shit with their car, and they would like never want to pay more than like 100, 200 bucks, to get their stuff fixed. And in general, it was just really stressful, and there wasn't really any money in it. I didn't really have the tools or the knowledge, and I didn't really know. I just kept posting on Craigslist. So that was like the only way I was getting like more customers, which was not like a very reliable way to find the customers that I wanted. Again, people that call a mobile mechanic typically don't have the money to go to a shop. So they typically don't have the money to pay you a fair rate. You're not really making anything. But it was a learning lesson nonetheless. Moving on, I eventually ran out of money and I had to stop doing that. And I believe I started working at PF Chang's, which was another restaurant job. I was a waiter, a busser, and I was making pretty good money there. And this was during the pandemic. The pandemic had started, and this whole time during the pandemic was kind of when I first started like waking up to self-improvement. Before that, I knew nothing about self-improvement. I knew nothing about business. I knew I wanted to have a business and I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't know anything about it. I had no experience. So PF Chang's, the whole time I was working at PF Chang's, the pandemic was like a shit time. I started like researching businesses. I started kind of thinking about getting into working out, and that's when I actually started getting into running. I actually started getting into like some entrepreneurial, like watching videos and whatnot. I remember crypto exploding. I made some money off crypto, and that was like the first time I was like, yo, I just made money online, like using like the internet. I took like this so much amount of money and I turned it into more money by using the internet. So that was like the first exposure, something that sparked in my brain that told me, hey, I can use the internet to make money. Now, I don't trade crypto now. I don't trade stocks. It's not my expertise, but it was another learning lesson. It was like, okay, the internet, it was the first time I ever made money online, without doing physical work. So that just kind of reinforced my belief that it was possible to make money using the internet, leveraging the internet, even if it's not what I do now. So fast forward, PF Chang's, I kind of started making my strategy to leave PF Chang's. I knew it was a temporary job. This was after I already flunked out of college, got kicked out of the military, all that stuff. So I was just I knew I didn't want to go back to college. So I kind of felt like my options were closed. I didn't start doing social media stuff or YouTube or anything like that. But I decided to start a cleaning business. And that was my second attempt at, I took the leap of faith. I left that job. I quit. I remember something happened at the job where they cut my pay. And it was just unacceptable. It was like my pay was almost cut in half. Because I switched my job position. I was no longer a waiter. And instead, I can't remember what it was called. It was like basically a busser, bussing tables, and doing like takeout, like the takeout orders for the DoorDash. So I would like take out orders for DoorDash. I would like put the orders together for people picking it up. My pay went from like 20 something an hour to like $10 an hour. Because before that, it was just off tips during the pandemic. And then after that, it went to like the hourly rate. They put it at 10. And I was like, dude, fuck this shit. Literally, I remember the day that it switched. I was thinking about, I worked like 5 hours and I was like, yo, I only made $50. And I was like, dude, I remember I left in the middle of my shift. I literally went to my manager and I told him, I was like, yo, I'm fucking going home and I'm not coming back. And he said, okay. And I like handed him my radio. I handed him my stuff. And after that, I just got in my fucking Toyota Corolla and I took off. I went home. And I only had like $2,000 saved up. So I was like, all right, I'm starting a cleaning business. Because that's what that family member that had a business, she had a cleaning business. And she was successful. She'd done it for 20 years. So I just copied her. I actually started working for her. I told her, I was like, yo, look, I left my job. I need some sort of income. Can I work for you? And she said yes. So she took me on a few jobs. She started, like, she trained me how to clean, like, Airbnbs, how to clean houses. And I started doing it by myself. So she would just tell me, hey, this house needs to be cleaned. And I would go clean it. She would give me the money. And that was that. I was just working by myself. And that was when the real self-improvement journey began. That's when I started listening to podcasts when I was working. I did that for about, I want to say like 6 to 8 months. I really wasn't making much money. At the same time, I was trying to get my own cleaning like jobs, but it was really hard. Same thing. I was still learning about business. I didn't know how to like advertise. I just had like some shitty, business cards, flyers that I created. And I got a few jobs here and there for myself, but it ended up not really being enough for, what I wasn't making enough to sustain myself. And eventually there's a certain time of the year where cleaning businesses slow down, so during the winter. And I just remember the point where I basically ran out of money. She didn't have enough work to go around to give to me. I didn't have enough work. I didn't know what I was doing. And also, I really wasn't fully into my self improvement. So I was still smoking a lot of weed. I was still drinking. I was still playing video games every day. And I remember it taught me a lesson. I failed. I didn't make enough money and I didn't find enough work. That second attempt at my own business failed because I wasn't fully committed to it. I was half-assing it. Just like the mobile mechanic thing, I was half-assing it. I was still just playing video games whenever I wanted. I was not disciplined at all. But that taught me a very valuable lesson. I realized afterwards, I was like, dude, if I gave it my all, if I gave it everything, I probably would have been fine. But guess what? When I ran out of money, I ended up getting a job at Walmart. A few of my friends actually worked at Walmart, and it was crazy because I had 5 friends working there that I went to school with. And so yeah, I had to go to Walmart at 22 years. I was 22. I was 22 and I was just in the first stage of self-improvement. I had to go to Walmart and it was really, really degrading. I'm working at Walmart. I'm 22 years old. I have no education. I have no college. I just felt like kind of a failure, but I didn't give up. I was like, fuck this shit. I knew when I went into Walmart that I was like, this is temporary. This is temporary. I'm not going to be here forever. So I gave myself a goal. I was like, the whole time I'm here at Walmart, I'm going to clean my fucking life up. I'm going to get exercising every day. I'm going to research as much as I can about business. I'm going to learn how to advertise. I'm going to go back into the cleaning industry. And this time I'm going to be much more prepared. So I spent about 8 months at Walmart, and this entire time was when I fell in love with running. That's when I finally quit drinking. It was when I finally quit porn, masturbation. This whole time when I was there, I was just focused on that singular goal of self-improvement. That's when I was fully aware of self-improvement. I knew what I had to do. I was like, I can't be playing video games anymore. I can't be jacking off anymore. I can't be using substances. I can't be drinking. I can't be fucking around. I can't be wasting any time whatsoever. And so this whole time was spent preparing while also stacking my money. So I was just preparing myself for my eventual exit strategy at my third attempt of working for myself, self-employed. And guess what? So one day I'm working at Walmart and this guy, he would come in all the time. He was like, this guy was an asshole. He had a lifted truck. He had a nice ass lifted truck. And I remember one day he pulled up in a trailer and it was saying, scrubbing guys or something. So he dropped off his truck for the oil change. By the way, I worked in the Walmart oil change and tire shop. So I was changing people's oil, changing the tires, and the pay wasn't bad. It was 16, 17 an hour. The hours were good, 40 hours a week. It was enough to scrape by while I was making my plan. But I remember I asked him a question. I was like, hey, do you have a cleaning business? I noticed your trailer. And he said, oh yeah. He was like, what, are you interested in that? I was like, yeah, I had a cleaning business and I failed and I ended up here, but I'm planning on getting back out there. And I remember he told me, he was like, well, don't quit your job until you figure things out, So he gave me a few pieces of advice, and then he gave me his phone number. I was like, so what do you do? And he was like, oh, I make $600 a day, cleaning RVs. I was like, hearing that $600 a day, bro, that was like how much I made on my check. And I thought about that. I was like, yo, $500, even $500 a day, if I can make that in a day, that would be life changing. That would be like, that would change everything, you know? And he said he would scrub RVs. He said he was cleaning RVs, right? So that's when I started looking into that. I was like, yo, maybe this RV thing, I'll keep that in the back of my mind, right? So fast forward a few months later, I leave Walmart. I tell myself, all right, I got to make this leap of faith. I got to get back into this business. So I left Walmart and I just started doing anything. This time my new strategy was like, I need to make money no matter what, and I need to stay self-employed. So I started taking up like cleaning jobs again, cleaning houses for my family member. And then I started detailing cars, pressure washing, anything, anything I could do, anything I could possibly do just to keep money rolling in the bank account. And I gave it my all. I gave it everything. All the life lessons that I learned from the past, like, few years attempting business, I put it to fruition. And I remember what that guy said about the RVs. So I remember I made some like crappy business cards for cleaning RVs, and I started going like door to door cleaning to clean RVs, right? I was just knocking on doors, giving away cards. And I got a few doors slammed in my face, but after doing this enough, after like a week or two, I got a few jobs. I got several jobs, right? And I remember I used those few jobs to, that's when I got into like Google, right? Google ads. I set up a Google My Business page and I made it for RV cleaning. And I remember those RV jobs, I was making like $300 something per RV cleaning. So that was enough at the time. I barely had any bills. That was enough to keep going to the next job, right? I just barely scraped by. And then I had the occasional pressure washing job. I was making pretty good money doing that. Detailing cars, you can make pretty good money detailing cars. So I was making like $200 here, $300 there. And I was like kind of getting into a roll of it. I was like, yo, I'm making some decent money, right? Like I'm, making $300 here, $300 there, trying different things, dropping off cards, posting online, posting on Facebook. Word of mouth was spreading. And then I unlocked Google. I made a Google account and I ran some Google ads. And guess what? It was insane. My phone started ringing. Hey, you clean RVs? You clean RVs? You do cars? You do auto detailing? Oh, yes, sir. Before I knew it, I was doing like 3 or 4 RVs a week, making like over $1,000, $2,000 a week. And then it got to that point. I did like 2 RVs in one day. I'm like, I finally got to that point where that guy was bragging to me when I was just a wage cut. I remember my first time, I made like $600 or $700 in one day. And that was like the floodgates had opened. That showed me I could make money. That showed me that I was like, dude, it was the most money I ever made in my life. I remember my first $10,000 month. Making $10,000 in 1 month. It was such an alien concept to me in my head in the past. And it felt like something that was impossible. There's like that $10,000 a month. It's such a shiny number. There's so many gurus online. 10K in a month, 10K in a month. I reached that 10K in a month. And after that, everything changed. I started running Google ads. I started running Facebook ads. I started doing social media marketing. Started all that. I expanded. I started having people work for me. Started hiring people. And now I'm getting, dude, my company makes $25,000 a month on average. I remember in 2022, my revenue for my business, I made $20,000 that first year. $20,000. It was barely enough to scrape by. I barely scraped by. I just barely survived off of that money. 2023, company brought in 100,000. Guess what? The end of this year, 2024, I'm looking at the financials. Company has made over $200,000. In 2 years, I went from 20K to $200,000. And next year, I'm projecting $400,000 that I'm going to make. So, my bit of advice, guys, is the grass is greener on the other side. I work so much more now than I did at any wage cut slave job. But the amount of freedom that you'll have, the satisfaction, people respect you for working for yourself, the doors that open up, travel, you can buy things, like you're living life on your own terms. And remember in the story, earlier in the story, I failed 2 times before the third time finally took off. The first business failed. I didn't know shit. The second business, I knew a little bit more, but the first business, I lasted a few months doing that. The second business, I lasted almost a year doing that. This business, I have survived off of this. I haven't worked for anyone else in over 2 years. The last 2 years of my life, I've only worked for me. And that's how I'm going to spend the rest of my life. I'm never going back. You cannot take the knowledge. And that's the thing. Every time I failed and restarted, I had so much more knowledge from the last failure. Until I had just enough sufficient knowledge after all the pain that I knew. And now I can go start. I've already started another business that's already successful. I actually have 2 businesses now that are both bringing in revenue. So I have a second business I can fall back on. And guess what? I'm off making my 3rd, 4th business now. This is a business too. This YouTube thing, all this stuff, it's business at the end of the day. But I have to tell y'all that I meet so many people that think that it's impossible. I thought it was impossible, but I never gave up. And now that I know it is possible, I know that no matter what happens, I can restart from scratch. I can always take this knowledge and I can reapply it anywhere else. It's going to be with me for the rest of my life. And that's what you got to do. You can't expect yourself to be perfect. You just got to throw yourself out there. If you have no experience, no nothing, just do it. Just start it. Like the Nike saying, just do it. That's my advice for you. Just do it. And if you fail, then good. Come back. Keep doing it. Keep doing it until it fucking finally sticks. Because that's the only way you're going to get the experience of running a business, is by actually being in the game. You may not know how to play the game, but if you start playing the game, you'll learn how to play it. It's like poker, right? You have to put some chips on the table to enter the poker game, right? You may not be good at poker, but there's only one way of getting good at poker, and that's playing fucking poker. And yeah, you gotta put your chips on the table, and you might lose all your fucking chips. You might get bankrupt. But guess what? Now you know how to play poker. So the next time you come back to the table, you actually have something to fall back on. Okay, I know that this suite of cards is good. I know to my risk strategies and all this other shit. You know what I mean? But that's the best advice I can give y'all. Yeah, no, it is better. Life is so much better now. Everything is better. I feel better. I feel fucking fulfilled in my life. I actually have a reason to live. And if you combine business with self-improvement, it's a recipe for success. Self-improvement is what led to my success. If I didn't quit the porn, the video games, the fucking fapping, the drugs, all that stuff, I would not have had the drive, the ambition, I would not have put in those extra hours that actually made me successful. Because it was hard. It was not easy. This shit was not easy. I had to sacrifice many sleepless nights. I work every single day. I still work every single day. I'm not where I want to be. I want to make millions of dollars. And if I want to make millions, I got to be performing at my best. That's part of why I quit weed. I knew that Yeah, I could still smoke weed. I could probably still be successful, but I'm not going to be running at my 100%. I'm still going to be at a disadvantage. Any advantage I can take to make more money, to get more knowledge, I'm going to take that advantage. So cut out all the bullshit and just focus on what you want to do. If you want to start a business, you have to give it your all. You have to sacrifice everything. There's no shortcuts. All right, guys, please like, subscribe. Let me know if you have a question about business. I can actually help y'all out. I've got a lot of knowledge now. So please let me know. Peace out.